Are you looking for the perfect family Jeep that's budget friendly but fits all your family needs? Well, we're going to talk about that Jeep in this video, but first let's talk about the 5 key criterias of picking this Jeep before we get started. Number 1, the Jeep has to be budget friendly. So in budget friendly, I mean anywhere from $500 to like $2,500. We don't want to spend too much money. I want to keep this Jeep very low cost. I don't want to have to go out and buy a brand new Jeep for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. That's definitely not the goal of this video, nor is building a $20,000 Jeep. So I would like to keep this build as low as possible, but meet all this criteria. All right, so the second criteria for this Jeep is huge, just because this build is going to be for family oriented. It needs to be spacious. So we want to be able to drive cross country and have room for all of our luggage, the kids, maybe the dogs. Heck, go get groceries, take the kids to the soccer games, or you name it. So number 2 is spacious. Number 3, it needs to be reliable. More likely this Jeep that we're going to pick, it's going to be a little bit older Jeep. So there are older Jeeps that are very reliable. So we need to make sure when we're driving cross country, this thing is not breaking down on us. Although I have seen a lot of newer Jeeps break down, so I guess it really doesn't matter old and new. But we definitely want this Jeep to be as reliable as possible. And to go along with that, on the fourth criteria, it needs to be easy to maintain and easy to work on. Because unfortunately, it's probably going to break down at some point. You're going to off-road it, something's going to break, or it's driving all across country all the time or whatever. It's eventually going to break down. So we want it to be as easy as possible to work on and as easy as possible to get parts for also. So that's number 4. And then the 5th, it needs to have a really good off-road capability. Along with it needs to be pretty comfortable also on the road. It's pretty huge if you got something that rides like a board and you're trying to go across country and you have kids in it. It's just not gonna work too well. So this Jeep needs to be able to off-road, plus it needs to be pretty comfortable while we're driving it. So with all that in mind, we're gonna pick a Jeep from, I think, is the greatest era of Jeeps ever, is the 90s and early 2000s. If you think I'm wrong, leave it in the comment below. I want to hear what you think the greatest era Jeep is from. I definitely think it's from the 90s and early 2000s. That's pretty much when almost every Jeep they released was able to drive on the road and off-road and be pretty capable for both. Yeah, so with the criteria that we have for this Jeep, it's going to eliminate a lot of the Jeeps from that era. So obviously the TJ, the LJ, the MJ, or the YJ, we will not be using for this family cheap Jeep. So that leaves us with 3 Jeeps. So it has the XJ, the MJ, or the ZJ. So let's go ahead and see what Jeep we're going to be talking about. So if you guessed it, it was the ZJ. If you thought it might have been the XJ or the WJ, well, you were wrong. But let me explain why not the XJ. So why not the XJ? I love the XJ. It's one of my favorite Jeeps. The problem is with the XJ, the price for these things are just getting outrageous. So they're definitely not affordable. So it's not going to fit our cheap Jeep build criteria, because we need something affordable. And this Jeep here I bought for $5,500 not running. So yeah, that's pretty high for this, but it's not rotted out. All that's wrong with it is the hood's a little faded with the hood paint's a little faded, and then the roof is flaking some paint. So not a big deal, but it's not rotted out. So number 1, why not the XJ? It's just not affordable anymore. To get a completely rotted out XJ, you're still going to spend $2,000 on it, at least in my area. So for me, that's definitely not worth it for me. Number 2, the ZJ body is actually 10 inches longer than the XJ body. So for family wise, if we can get a little bit more space, that's going to be perfect for us, especially for the type of stuff we want to do with this family cheap Jeep build. And then my third one is the wheelbase. The wheelbase is actually it's like 5 inches longer on the ZJ than the XJ. So that's definitely going to help when we're doing trails. Just feel a little more, have a little more stability going up hills. So definitely like the little bit longer wheelbase also. And the last, why not for the XJ? Well, the rear is leaf spring, and it doesn't ride that as well as a full coil spring Jeep. Now that's not a knock on the XJ by any means, because to lift this and to get it to perform really well, it is actually really cheap to do that. So I guess that's a little bit of trade-off. I want something that rides a little more comfortable than this one. Just kind of, you know, rides a little rough just because you got the leaf springs. So last one is because it just doesn't ride as well as what a full coil sprung Jeep is going to ride. And you might be thinking the WJ. Why not the WJ? Well, I like the WJ, but it was kind of a draw between the two. I actually like the ZJ looks a little more rugged. So for me, kind of looks. And then the second, why not the WJ? It's just a little too long. It's like 4.5 inches longer than the ZJ, or 4.4 inches longer than the ZJ. So you start playing around with, well, when you get into tight trails and doing this stuff, once you start getting too long, it starts making it a little difficult in those trails. So not saying the WJ is not a good Jeep, because it was between the WJ and the ZJ. Either one of those would be a really good family Jeep for sure. So that's why we didn't go with the WJ. Okay, since we got a family Jeep narrowed down to the ZJ, let's talk a little bit about it. This Jeep was built in 1993 to 1998. It was actually the first luxury Jeep that Jeep ever made, and it was the first coil spring front and rear Jeep that Jeep ever made. So that's definitely pretty cool. So since we talked a little bit about the Jeep, let's go ahead and talk about some of the engine options that come in this Jeep. So the first option is the legendary Jeep engine, the 4-liter, the straight 6 engine. Come in these. You can also get the 5.2 V8 engine in this, and then a 5.9 V8 engine in this also. The 5.9 only come out in 1998 Jeep. It was a limited run on those, so a pretty cool option that you can get in these Jeeps. On ours, I opted for the inline 6, the 4-liter engine, just because I'm looking for reliability. I'm not saying either one of those engines aren't reliable, but for the straight 6, these things are pretty much bulletproof. So I had to opt for maybe the lesser horsepower, the lesser torque engine for the reliability, but I'm okay with that. Okay, let's talk about another option that come in the ZJs. They had 3 transfer case that come in these Jeeps. The NP231, which is probably a more common one that you would like for off-roading. That one is part-time 4-wheel drive, so you get 2-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low, and a neutral. I do not have that in this Jeep, and I really wish this one had it. So usually the NP231 come in the 4-liter option Jeeps. Now the second transfer case that come in these were the NP242s, which they had a part-time and a part-time 4-wheel drive and full-time 4-wheel drive option in them. So you would have 2-wheel drive, full-time, then you got the 4 low and a 4 high in that NP242. Those come in the 4-liter. Some 4-liter options got that. Unfortunately, ours got that. And then it would come in the 5.2 liter V8 engine also. And then the last transfer case that come in these Jeeps were the NP249s. They only come in the V8 options. They were a full-time 4-wheel drive with an optional 4 low in it. Those come in your V8 model, so your 5.2 and your 5.9s. But also, we can go ahead and talk about axle options for the ZJ2. So the front axle, they were all Dana 30s, so there was no change on those. The only thing is they did have 2 different rear axles that come in this Jeep. So the infamous Dana 35, the dreaded Dana 35. They're not the greatest axle, but you can make do with them as long as you don't go too big a tire. So our Jeep come with the Dana 35. So the Dana 35 come in your 4-liter engine option ZJs along with your base model 5.2 with no tow package. So you can get a Dana 35 in that. Now the other option that you can get for the rear axle was Dana 44A, which was a aluminum housing Dana 44. So definitely a lot stronger than a Dana 35. Those come in your 5.9 liter and your 5.2 liter V8 engines with the tow package. So definitely would love to have that axle in the rear, but I think we can make do with something else. So if you guys have any suggestions, because we are definitely going to be changing out this rear axle, because this Dana 35 is just not going to work for what I want to do with this Jeep. So if you have any suggestions on what rear axle I should go with, I'll definitely take that in consideration for when I'm building this. Okay, since we talked about the options that come in this ZJ, let's take a look at the ZJ that I picked up. And we're going to talk a little bit after this on how we're going to keep this Jeep at a low cost. So I'm looking to keep this under $6,000. And I'm going to tell you after this, after we go over this Jeep, on how we're going to do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. It's really not too bad. There is some rust. There's some dings and whatnot in the hood. So I was out in the hailstorm. For this build, I kind of want to get this thing looking nice again. I don't want this all crinkled up and just look like crap. I'm going to have my family in this, so I still want it to look good. So we're going to take care of this body work, and we're going to keep it all in that $6,000 budget. So we take a look here. This front fender is pretty whooped, so you might have to do some digging and find us a new fender. And obviously the rockers are definitely rotted out, so we're going to have to come up with a solution for that. And then everything around here I definitely want to fix. So this rear corner here is all smashed and dented in. I'm definitely going to fix that. I've been a mechanic for a little over 15 years, but I really haven't done a whole lot of body work, so I'm going to learn how to do body work on this build. So, and then obviously these bumpers and stuff like that, we're not going to keep any of that. That's all going to come off there. Let's talk a little bit about how I'm going to build this Jeep to meet all that criteria I talked about and still keep it under that $6,000 mark. We know how expensive everything is getting, and it definitely is really hard to be able to build something within a $6,000 range anymore. You used to be able to do it all the time, but it's getting pretty hard now. But we're gonna make it happen. So I'm gonna keep it around that $6,000 mark. So I'm gonna do everything I can. So I'm gonna trade, I'm gonna bargain, go to junkyards. We'll look on eBay, Facebook Marketplace. So I am gonna try to not pay full price for anything that I give for this thing. So we're gonna do our best to just get deals on things, and if we can't find a deal on it, we're gonna try to build it. So a lot of this, we're gonna be doing a lot of learning on fabricating, because I've never built bumpers or anything like that. I have done a lot of different welding and stuff, but that is one thing I have not done, is build bumpers. So we're probably gonna learn how to do that on this Jeep. So let's talk a little bit about this Jeep. I actually got this Jeep for $0. So I traded my time and labor for this Jeep. So the person that was selling this Jeep wanted $4,000 for it, which is crazy high. But anyhow, he had a Jeep that he wanted lifted and some other work done to it. So we worked out a deal to where I will go ahead and put the lift and stuff on his Jeep, and I will get this Jeep in return. So if you have any type of skills or anything you can trade for the Jeep, that is definitely would be a good way to start. But if you don't, you can get these for about $500 to $2,500. So this goal for the family cheap Jeep is to keep it as reliable and as affordable as possible, and still be capable on-road and off-road. So if you guys have any suggestions on what I should do to this Jeep to meet that criteria that I talked about at the beginning of the video, definitely leave a comment below, because if I can keep it within that affordable range, then I'm going to try to do it. So definitely leave some comments below. Let me know what you think we should do to this ZJ. Also, if you like any other budget-friendly builds like this, I also have another build on a Jeep TJ, so you guys should go check that out.